So to get us started, I wanted to introduce our panelists that have joined us today and remind everyone as well that we are recording. So this will be on our YouTube channel later when we get that uploaded, probably by next week. So to begin things, I'd like to introduce Hope Bodenschatz. Hope is a senior research assistant in the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston's New England Public Policy Center. She supports the work of Vice President and economist Jeffrey Thompson, director of the NEPPC, contributing to research, studying racial wealth gaps, and helping to prepare presentations about the regional economy. She graduated from Penn State in 2021 with an MA and BS in economics, as well as BAs in geography and political science, and a minor in sustainability leadership, as well as an integral part of our office as a network assistant. So it's good to see you. Seth Hernandez. Seth joined MAP EDU in 2021 and was named CEO in 2022. He is focused on commercializing the company's educational technology, which helps health science professional schools with the accreditation process. Seth's entrepreneurial journey began nearly a decade ago when he founded Cloud Anthem, a cloud reselling and consultancy business helping mid to large size companies transition to the cloud. Simultaneously, he identified an unmet need in the Bay Area catering industry for a high-touch, full-service licensed mobile beverage catering company and launched SF Bartenders. Prior to his entrepreneurial endeavors, Seth spent his career selling various software solutions. Seth graduated from the Pennsylvania State University in 2006 with a BA in economics. He is an active member of the Penn State Alumni Association and was the recipient of a Young Alumni Achievement Award in 2018. Seth is also a proud big brother with the Bay Area Big Brothers Big Sisters organization. Navia graduated from Penn State in May 2022 with a degree in economics and a small business certificate. During her time at Penn State, she was heavily involved in Thon and served as a TA for Econ 315 Labor Economics. She also held an internship with Southwestern Mutual prior to graduation. Since September 2022, she has been working at Bloomberg on the municipals team. Welcome all of you. Thank you for joining us. And for our moderation today, we are welcoming Dr. Boyle, who is an assistant teaching professor of economics, who holds his PhD from Florida State in economics as well. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Okay. Austin has a few, or Dr. Boyle has a few questions that he is going to kick us off with, but for the audience here, you are welcome to use the Q&A or the chat. I prefer the Q&A is easier, to share any questions you might have that come up through the panel. We want it to be an interactive event as well.
Okay, sure. I will kick this off, and this is open to everybody. And I want to know, what are the types of economics skills that you learned during your Penn State career that you are now using professionally?
Oh.
I can jump in and share a little bit. So my role as a research assistant is really a support role, helping the economist that I work for really in all areas of his research. So, similar to academic research that you probably read in economics classes, that's what we're producing at the Fed. And so anything from kind of literature review to cleaning data to running analysis, even finding data, things like that, helping to proofread papers when they're getting almost done. All of that is kind of under the purview of my job. And so along with that, coding skills are something that I learned at Penn State that's really valuable. My economist uses data primarily, and that's often true, I think, for economists at the Boston Fed, but also there's some use Python, some use R as well. So I think really for me, what I found is having sort of one coding language under your belt makes it easier to branch out and learn others when need be. So that's definitely really useful. But other than that, just general research experience, having some awareness, maybe you've done a research project in an economics class, and just knowing even where to look for data, kind of having some, when we're doing literature review, being used to reading economic papers and knowing kind of how to get through those to what is most important. Things like that are also really useful. So yeah, that's definitely, those are all things that I would have found useful.
Navia, anything to add?
Yeah, well, just more speaking in general terms, definitely leaving Penn State with an economics degree, you come out with a very analytical thinking, and especially in the time while I was in school, COVID took a huge impact on the economy as well. And so definitely being in classes and relating what you're learning to what was currently the situation was a very interesting thing, but also kept us more aware by reading the news, seeing how the markets were doing and everything, and kind of taking those hard skills and applying that to my position at Bloomberg by being more aware of what's happening around you, the news around you and everything, because it's really easy to not pay attention, not be thinking about it at all. And then all of a sudden you see the market crashing. You're like, oh, what happened? So actively reading the news every day, even if it's just a blurb that you read and you're like, oh, I'll come back to that like tonight or something like that. Which really helped me with just being in class, even like talking to professors and then like showing us examples in like the real world and like how it connects to what we're learning right now, and coming out with that analytical thinking by looking at data, seeing how supply and demand obviously correlate together in that specific situation. So taking those kind of generalized skills have really helped me in my position today.
And I would like to just add on to that too, being able to take that analytical view and like step back and figure out what's going on in this world. I recall in 2020 when COVID had just, was announced and we started all sheltering in place. I actually reached out to Professor Chudowitz and basically asked him what his thoughts were about the market and kind of an option that I was going to, engage in within the market. We talked through that via email. And very insightful. And mind you, again, I graduated in 2006 and was still able to reach out to him, and he was, responded back. Another thing too, and just historically speaking, with Chudowitz's money and banking and other, courses throughout the program, one thing I realized is if the market is going to go towards, these recessionary times, and if everything is cyclical, in fact, what tracks well through downturns. And my wife and I actually just bought an investment property not long ago as well, and hit some of the best rates. I mean, historically speaking, we have a 2.5% mortgage on an investment property that we bought within the last 24 months. And so being able to understand cycles and when to buy and possibly when to sell, et cetera, was extremely helpful with my econ degree. So.
Yeah, and I'll say, I'm sure Professor Chudowitz was happy to hear from you so many years later. I know not just me, but my professor friends, we all like it when our former students reach back out, let us know what they're doing in their life. It's great to hear about their successes, and we always want to help you. So don't be shy. And there is a chance if you email at the wrong time during the semester, it gets buried in a stack of hundreds of emails, but we'll try to get back to you. And if you don't hear back, it's okay to follow back up, like, I don't know, the next week and say, hey, I sent you a message last week. I think the best way to do is forward your old message so that the original timestamp's on there. But I want to jump over to a question that we got anonymously in the Q&A. And so this is open for everybody. It says, what kind of experiences or jobs have you had that you think set you up well for your career now?
I can speak to this, but I had an internship at Northwestern Mutual, and because for when I did my econ degree, I was more business oriented or business. I try to push it towards that. Definitely this internship kind of opened my eyes up to what it's like being in the corporate world, because I never really had that step or that kind of experience ever, because it's really different sitting in class hearing about it versus really putting yourself in a position, especially putting yourself in a sales position. Sales is one of the most hardest things to do, and some people got it, some people don't. And if I'm going to be honest, I'm not a very sales oriented person, but it was an experience that I'm definitely grateful that I got, because not only did it help me kind of put myself in a person's shoes that you've always like seen or heard about or whatever, but kind of also jump out of my comfort zone. It wasn't a comfortable thing talking to people, talking about their financials, especially being so young, because they're going to look at you as, oh, she's young. Why would I, someone who's 50 years old, tell this 21-year-old why, like, what my financial goals are, what I've done over the years, my retirement plan and everything like that. So it really helped me step out of my comfort shoes, have those conversations, and really gain an insight of even what I want in the future, what I want to do, how I want to create my portfolio and everything like that. So yes, I figured out that this is not something that I would want to do for the rest of my life, but it was something that I finally got the taste of, rather than just sitting in class and hearing about it. You know, when you really put yourselves in that position, you really tend to learn more about yourself, more about the position as it is. And also you get to learn overall what you want and what you don't want. And that's the most important thing, especially because there's a lot of moving parts, a lot of different moving parts. And this was definitely something different that I did.
Yeah. I've been in the hospitality industry since my first job. I was a cart attendant at a golf course, cleaning, wealthy people's golf clubs, right? So the sales thing, I think, came naturally. And just, the, back and forth of a conversation, it is one of those things. So hospitality, serving, car attendants, whatever it may be. I also bartended too for a hot second over at the Allen Street Grill. And so, as you saw in my bio, that I also owned a beverage catering company. That helped, obviously. Yeah, I mean, I think following kind of who you are, like if you are a social person, sales might be a phenomenal career for you. What I love about sales too is the harder and smarter you work, actually, the more you can possibly make. There is not a set salary for salespeople for the most part. So something to consider.
Hey, Seth, I want to jump in now and follow up with another question from our Q&A. It was directed at you about how did you get started in your business, or how did you get started in getting your business up and running? So you just told us a little bit about your previous experience in the field. So then I think, maybe some logistical challenges and that sort of thing is part of the question. And then a follow-up is, what skills do you think helped you push through imposter syndrome?
Got it. So a number of things. So I took a different approach, or a different path rather, I guess, from my econ degree, right? I'm not at the Fed, I don't do money banking stuff. So when I graduated from Penn State, I actually wanted to open up a bar. I mean, I think there are a subset of, 21-year-olds who want to do that, right? So I came back to Bakersfield, where I'm originally from in California, and pitched the idea to some, other business folks, and realizing that nobody was going to give, this 21-year-old kid with next to zero, experience, like $500,000, $1 million to start a bar, which I don't think I would do that either these days. Made me figure out, okay, well, what is it that I need to do? So I saw a friend of mine who was in software. He would go to work in shorts and t-shirts and on a skateboard. And I was just like, okay, seems like a pretty cool, company to work for. So I grew for the next about 10 years or so, and worked at various software companies, from, the Central California area where I was born, and then back into Silicon Valley here in San Francisco, where I live now. And long story short, when I was at Box, I was having different conversations, not just about Box, right? It's what integrates with Box, what is the best, platform to do X, Y, and Z. So it was more of a consultative approach. And that led me to say, okay, well, actually, I could do this. I could resell Box, and I can also resell other solutions that integrate and kind of create this tech stack that helps businesses go from legacy technologies to the cloud. And the long story short is I did that. That is a long sales cycle, right? So 3, 6, 9, 12 plus months to close businesses with software. I had a student loan at that time from Penn State, and I needed to pay that. So I had a set amount of savings where I need to hopefully scale Cloud Anthem. I had this student loan that was monthly, never stopping. And so what I told my then fiance was, why don't I just go and bartend a couple of private events and help pay for that student loan? Well, long story short, that became SF Bartenders and scaled very quickly. I would advise that it's not really beneficial to try to scale 2 startups at the same time. Burned, the candle at both ends of the stick. Neither got 100% of me and what they should have deserved. But that allowed me to, scale SF Bartenders to pay off my student loan. That also allowed me to continue slowly growing Cloud Anthem. And then the whole imposter syndrome question. One thing that I've figured out in being my own boss and starting 2 companies, not getting any investment in those first 2, joining this last company, Map.edu, everybody, it doesn't matter who, everybody is still learning new things, and not everyone has the right answer. Warren Buffett, I think he says he reads some 500 pages a day or something like that, right? He doesn't have every single answer to every single question, right? And so knowing that we're all just human, right? We're all here trying to, move the stick, or move the needle rather, is, I think, a little, a reprieve from that imposter syndrome, right? It's, we're so hard on ourselves, right? We are our own worst critics, right? So giving yourself some grace, knowing that nothing is perfect. You continue to just, put one foot in front of the other and just keep progressing, right? And that will help with that imposter syndrome. And quite frankly, again, I think everybody has that at one point, the other, or continuously through life. So embrace it, right? Just continue working step after step, and it'll come together.
Thanks. That was a great answer. And then Hope, did you want to come back to the kinds of experience and jobs you've had that set you up for your career now?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So my job right now is very involved with economic research, and I knew probably around my sophomore year, I started getting really interested in working in economic research, and kind of particularly how that relates and what that can teach us about public policy and policies that are, useful. So along with that, and kind of with an interest in potentially going back to school for an economics PhD, I throughout my undergrad spent most of my summers working as a research assistant for a couple of economics professors at Penn State, as well as some professors in geography. And that taught me a ton, of course, helped to prepare me for my current job, which has kind of a lot of similarities, just sort of a plus version almost of what I was doing in college. But I would say in terms of learning research intuition in particular, just having professors as mentors and kind of walking alongside them through the research process helped me to build my own skills, but also I think helped to give me a sense of that research is what I want to do, that kind of similar to what Navi was saying earlier, it's a way to sort of test drive a way of working that, I realized I really enjoyed kind of the sort of like deep thinking that research requires, and a lot of kind of solo work, thinking through different obstacles in your data, different obstacles in figuring out the right question to be asking, things like that. So I would say that was huge for me, both in terms of kind of then embarking on writing my honors thesis and my master's thesis, huge for that. And those were also a huge help, again, in terms of figuring out, I like research and kind of building the skills and the intuition that have been really, really useful for me in this job.
Okay, great. Thanks, Hope. I'm going to jump in a little bit. Obviously, Career Enrichment Network is here to support all students in helping to find internships and support you in a research search, as well as full-time employment or graduate school after graduation. So I want to go into a little bit more depth of how you all might have found yourself involved in economics-related internships. Hope, you just mentioned research specifically. And where did you find those opportunities as undergrads? Hope, would you like to extend on your answer first, and then we can move on to Navia and Seth?
Yeah, so like I said, my experience was within Penn State. So my connections within Penn State to professors that I'd taken a class with, who kind of, in one case, it was kind of a professor noting that I had done a really good job in her class, had been kind of involved and gotten to know her, then, let me know about an opportunity. So I think that's one way. Another way too is just in economics. I was involved with a program called Careers in Academic Research and Economics, or the CARE program, run by Dr. B. Roberts, who is fantastic. And she, one of the other summers, I think I was interested in having a research assistant position in economics, and so she was able to kind of like had a sense for which professors were looking for RAs that summer, and then I was able to kind of interview and get the positions from there. So I would definitely say, I mean, for me, it was huge using my network and professors who really were fantastic mentors to me. Also were really big in helping me to find those opportunities. But beyond that, in terms of internships that, there's internships at the Federal Reserve, plenty there at both the Board of Governors in DC, as well as all 12 of the regional banks. So I'd absolutely just say, this spring I would take some time and just look to see what postings every, week or two, just check the Fed's postings, as well as I know there's tons of internships as well at think tanks like Brookings or places like that, if you're interested. So again, I would just kind of cast a wide net, and if you're interested in research, I know there's like I said, tons of RA positions kind of similar to what you'd have at a university, both at universities, but also at places doing similar academic work outside of them, like think tanks and the Federal Reserve.
I would imagine too, while you're doing your research and trying to figure out where you're going to have an internship or where you're going to apply, figure out if there are Penn Staters there, or figure out if you have any second degree connections that you can connect with, and just reach out to them. Everybody likes to help. And if you have to, as Dr. Boyle said, send them a couple emails, remind them that you're, interested in connecting and learning more. But use that network. And I mean, it is kind of in a way sales, right? And so Navia said that she, doesn't feel like she's in sales, but the higher you go in your career, the more you're going to actually sell. You have to sell yourself in an interview. You have to sell yourself in just receiving an email back from a Penn Stater who graduated last year, 2 years ago, whatever it may be. But just be persistent, right? If you have not received an email back from the first email, don't give up. Just keep going. Again, one foot in front of the other.
As a resource, I just want to share, we have the Alumni Mentor Program within the College of Liberal Arts, a formalized program that you can sign up and be associated with an alumni who's in an industry or major economics of interest, that can be a really great boots on the ground reference and content provider to you of what, you know, applications look like, interview processes look like, potential opportunities, and their network as well, right? But I would also say on LinkedIn, if you go to the Penn State page, as you can imagine, there are over 500,000 alumni from Penn State on LinkedIn, and economics happens to be in the top 10 of majors of those alumni. So it's really fun to go in and see what they're all doing and the variety in the degree. Potential sites or companies that they've worked in or done research in as undergrads that you may not have thought about, that you can then check out their career pages, as well as connecting with them, as Seth was saying, and seeing if you can get an informational interview with them too, just to fact collect and kind of explore different opportunities. They learned a lot through their career, and they want to pass that on to you to maybe make different mistakes or better choices at times, but also just hear about their really great career paths themselves. So absolutely use the network. Navia, would you like to talk a little bit about your internship?
Yeah, so definitely something that I did was utilize the career center like completely. I met with my career coach, Lauren, probably almost weekly, and like literally not even just to talk about internships, sometimes to even just stress talk to her as to like, oh my God, like I don't know if I'm gonna get one, like what's gonna happen, you know. And I completely understand, we're all in this boat, like, you know, like in the moment you're stressing out, then you get one, you're like, oh, like I wasn't stressed out the whole time, like, you know. But definitely utilizing what Penn State has. I lived on that career site for a couple months, just looking through internships, seeing if there was any career fairs that were coming up, seeing if there was any panels that were coming up that I can sit down and listen to, really utilizing that, because you don't see how much Penn State gives you till you really start to look, and utilizing the people around you. Like if you have people who have graduated from college, talk to them about their experience. If their company interests you, ask them if they can direct you to someone that can help them, like, you know. And everyone's willing to help. I know I talked to a lot of my friends. I talked to a couple of my professors, you know. Yes, some professors come off really scary. Fun fact, the one that I TA'd for initially, he's not here in the department anymore, but Professor Wooten, I was terrified of, went to office hours. We had a great talk for an hour. No one came in, and we just talked for an hour. It was 8 a.m. and I was tired, but I woke up right after that and I was like, wow, he's a really nice guy. Like, I don't know why I was scared of him. Like, you know, like they're really out there willing to help. He really put a lot of things into perspective, not just career-wise, but also saying like, what do you want to do? Like make a list of things that you like and kind of try to apply that to where you want to apply. And also, it's really easy to get hung up on this. And I know a year ago, I was in the exact spot. 2 years ago, I was in your exact seat. Like, getting hung up on the fact that you need to be in some big corporate name or like some big company name and have that name to your internship. Don't fall into that, you know. And like that's my best advice, where an internship is there to give you experience, to give you kind of those skills, that knowledge and everything, and for you to come out of that and apply that to your job search, whether you continue or you accept a position within that company or you go to a different company. An internship is there to give you that skills. No one's asking you to stay in that company after your internship. You are there to improve yourself, to improve your skills, your knowledge, and to soon become a resource to other people like all of us are here, you know. And it's hard to say that because I know I was thinking like, no, I have to have this big company name, but you know what? You don't. And this is someone that's sitting here telling you this, like you will get a job no matter what, like no matter what company you intern for, you know, you will get something.
Well, I want to follow up on something Seth said. It's kind of been floated around, is about contacting alumni. And we do have this giant alumni network. I think it's a reason some students come here in the first place. But there's a question that we have about how would students contact alumni?
Yeah, so LinkedIn obviously is one, extremely valuable resource, right? Lion Link is also another really good resource that I've used. I may consider myself a little bit more aggressive. I will Google folks, figure out, how I can get in contact with them if necessary. Those are just three, ideas that come to my mind. Anyone else have anything else?
For every company, you also look up on LinkedIn. You can hit the people tab and they will cycle up, since you're Penn Staters, they will cycle up those that work there that are Penn Staters. So even if you're looking, you can either look, as I mentioned, by Penn State University's LinkedIn page to look through those alumni, or if you're at a particular company like the Boston Fed, Hope would come up as one of the top because she's also a Penn Stater. So use those resources. And as I mentioned earlier, the Alumni Mentor Program is a great resource, and applications are being accepted right now for the next spring cohort. So
one thing too that I've also found out from being in sales is if you were to go to a website, primarily with public positions, right? So like schools, a lot of faculty members' emails are publicly accessible, right? But if you go to the Boston Fed, you actually might see a particular syntax of how emails are actually written out. And then you could even try a couple of ways: first name dot last name, or first initial dot last name, and just try to see what actually gets through. One little tidbit too: if you write, say, first initial last name at, and then the domain address in Gmail, sometimes folks have photos. So before you even push send, just when you enter in that email address, the photo of that person might appear, which that also is a very good sign that that is the correct address to get a hold of that person. Little hack.
Like it. Thanks, Seth. That's a great tip. Yeah, and I think boldness can pay off. Right, so it's easy to be shy. Right, it does definitely take a little bit of stepping outside of your comfort zone for some of us to take those steps, but with great risk comes great reward. Also big losses, right? That's risk, right? Sometimes you gotta roll with the losses. All right, so another question from the Q&A is, econ seems like a broad degree. How useful would it be to specialize?
Do you mean specialized just like in general, or like just those concentrations?
Well, I think, I'm not sure, but I think that if I could take some liberties, it would either be like we have the different concentration, like the paths that you can take for different groups of courses, or to hone your skills, like maybe I want to focus on coding, or maybe I just want to look at macro topics, or maybe I just want to think about international trade, maybe that kind of specialization. I'm not sure. And if Nicholas, if you wanted to follow up in the chat or something, if I misinterpreted that, go ahead.
Navia, do you want to?
Yeah, so I got a concentration in it was human resource within econ, and that really primarily was because I just took all the classes that I needed to get that concentration. And those concentrations honestly are really good, especially if you are really dedicated to being in that one field specifically. So if you want to go into, say, after you get your degree, you want to go into law school after that. Like, I know there's something for that. I know there's something for international business. I know that there was something in money and banking. There's a lot of concentrations, and those are definitely something that were useful. And I know a lot of people who had done it and a lot of people who didn't. But there's other ways to specialize too. You can also do it by the classes you take, kind of focusing on those specific classes where you're like, this is going to help me build my skills. I'm going to talk to those professors, having those professors that you talk to and continuously keep that contact with them, which is really important. Specializing in the clubs that you're in within Penn State, if you want to go towards business, be in things like women in business, kind of try to solidify yourself on one side. If you want to go in law, I know there's a lot of law clubs too and everything. And if you're more into coding, the coding side of that, there's a lot of LinkedIn courses that you can take, certifications that you can get as well. Doing that on the side, again, there's clubs for it too. How I kind of specialize myself primarily for business is I got my SMEAL business certificate. So you could do a minor, you could do another major if you wanted to. I got my business certificate, and along with that, I was making sure that my positions kind of related more to corporations. So I was a donor alumni relations captain for Thon for 2 years. I was also chair, so I worked with a lot of corporate donors, a lot of alumni, and kind of making myself more oriented towards that. I know econ tends to be such a broad degree. There's so much you can do with it, but when you come in, you express your interest within one specific field with your econ degree and say that this is all that I've done to express my interest along with this degree, which econ holds a huge plus for any job that you're applying to. I know it's really hard to believe, but a lot of companies prefer econ majors sometimes over finance majors. Like, believe it or not, people are starting to look more at econ majors because they're realizing, oh, they're the ones that really know it. They're the ones that really sat down throughout these last 10 years and learn about this and this and this. So they'll keep track of the stock market. They'll keep track of this. They'll do that. A lot of them read the news and stuff, and expressing your interest within that. I know for my position at Bloomberg, I thought coming in when I was interviewing, I was like, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage. Like, it's a data analyst position. They want only computer science majors or more business oriented majors. Came in and I said, yeah, I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Econ. They're like, oh, like, that's great. I love that. Like, they're looking at my resume, but they wanted me to expand on the classes I took, and they loved it. They thought that it was really beneficial, and they're starting to look more for it too. That goes along with other companies where they specify that we want people who are econ degrees. Even if it doesn't specify that, apply anyways. It's a broad degree, but it's broad for a good reason. Never think that that's your disadvantage. It's broad because basically have like the thing that you think everything. Like, like you're just like, oh yeah, it's a broad degree. I could have gone into finance, but I decided to expand my knowledge and go through econ. Like, and the classes are hard, so it shows a lot too.
Well said.
That was a beautiful answer, Navia. I really appreciate that. Yeah. And I think to drive your point and to we have so many wonderful questions in the Q&A. Thank you all for being so engaging with this panel. We're obviously going to run out of time, but I just wanted to say too that to drive your interest in the finance or consulting or those areas you think that you're not competitive in because you don't have those specific degrees in SMEAL, it's the outside the classroom experiences that everyone here had, and getting involved and being a leader and having an internship, part-time jobs, volunteer, executive roles in your student orgs. Those are all part of the package that comes with such an awesome degree in economics here at Penn State that allows you to have that holistic view, the analytical thought, the global perspective that makes you competitive in all of those areas of industry. And to Navi's point, yes, our recruiters are saying, we want your econ majors. You go to the SMEAL events, they want you at the table, come see employers one-on-one and share your resume when they're here for information tables and events to get in front of them. So.
All right. Did anybody, Hope or Seth, do you want to add to that econ being a broad degree, and would it be useful to specialize? Like Seth, it sounds like you've taken just some particular industries. I don't know if you've taken econ skills, but it does sound like you've had more time than the other panelists to, I don't know, narrow down your focus. Do you want to talk about that?
I would like to reiterate one point that Navia had mentioned, which is just taking different points of interest per se, right? So if you are interested in coding, or if you're interested in leadership, whatever it may be, continue pursuing those interests. What's going to happen is something you learned in a completely non-econ relevant sphere is going to lead to a point of discussion, or might make you a differentiator in an interview because you know something about something that is not econ related. Somebody comes from New Jersey, California, wherever. And you're like, oh, I was just, in Mammoth Mountain skiing, whatever. Like, I just heard that there's, a ton of snow in California. Like, it does not matter. Keeping yourself, a broad range of understanding of what's going on in current topics. And I guess another hack here, I guess, in this sense too, again, to kind of further drive that point, is when you're reaching out to somebody from Penn State, trying to get an internship, whatever, figure out who they are, where they're from, what interests they may have. And again, just try to make that human connection with anybody you talk to. And that will help, with the conversation, make it a little bit more, dynamic and warm and fruitful. So.
Okay, last question. I think we can squeeze one more in. Is if you could go back to Penn State studying economics, what would you do differently, do more of, et cetera, to prepare for your post Penn State plans? So maybe that's what classes you'd take or involvement, workshop speakers, anything that you can think of if you could go back and do it again.
I would have declared an econ earlier. I think that I was on the SMEAL track. And I know there's a lot of people, especially a lot of my friends, that we were all on the SMEAL track. So you'll be taking all the prereqs and everything. And I took Econ 102 with Dave Brown and I absolutely loved it. But I thought, oh, Econ's not in SMEAL. So, if I want to be business, got to go continue in SMEAL route. Then took 104 with Bill Goff and I loved it even more. And I thought to myself, like, this is what I love. And I wish that after I took 102 my first semester at Penn State, I was just like, oh yeah, I'll take econ. It would have helped me spread out my classes better. I would have had more knowledge and now I had to play catch up. Like that was the one thing that was hard for me, was playing catch up with all my classes and everything, because I was doubling up on them. Like, I think I took like 3 econ classes, like 2 semesters in a row, and if I hadn't really had that mindset before, someone had told me like, this is the degree that you're going to want, like I would go back and just switch it earlier, because I know that I would have had a lot more exposure and would have done a lot more with my time, like become someone in liberal arts who can be, I think there was like those like student leaderships that were there that, whatchamacallit, I forget what they were, but they were like basically people that you can go to and like they can mentor you, student mentors and stuff. I really wanted to do that. But I couldn't with just like the time obligation and everything. So really for me, just declaring earlier and then kind of going with it and talking to my counselor and just finding out every resource and all the things that I can do within econ and liberal arts in general.
I would say just be willing to explore and have an open mind. And I think really in college, taking kind of as much opportunity as you can to explore, whether that's through classes or through going to Career Enrichment Network events or going to see a lecturer who comes to visit Penn State, or a career fair, or anything, even things kind of less formal than that. College is just I guess, with clubs too, things like that. But college is such an amazing time where you have so many resources, so many interesting people, so many friends who are, maybe on similar tracks, maybe on different tracks, but there's so much to learn from them too, as you're kind of working together to figure out what you're going to do after you graduate. Professors, career coaches, really, you have so much at your fingertips. And I think just being willing to kind of similar to what Navia was just sharing, my econ was kind of a found degree for me too. I was taking econ 102 with Dr. Wooten for a different major. It was a requirement for, and it was something that I just, I came out of that class thinking, wow, this, I really like this. I think this fits with what what I'm interested in doing long term, things like that. But I would not have guessed that before I took this first class. And so I think having some willingness to give yourself space to explore, but also not rushing to know all of the answers. Whether while you're in college, choosing a major, when you first leave college, I am about a a year and a half outside of college, and there still is, you know, a lot that I'm not sure about. I kind of took this position as a, you know, in addition to being interested in research, it's kind of an interesting position because it's a short-term position that RA ships at the Fed. So you're at the Fed for 2 to 3 years, and then after that, a lot of RAs go on to grad school, but some in tons of different fields, but also some will continue in the workforce, or go get a master's degree, or things like that. So this was kind of a position that felt like the right next step for me, not kind of knowing what would be the right next step after that. And kind of, I think, being willing to kind of sit with that uncertainty and realize, you know, I'm going to take what at this point in time for me feels like the right next step. You don't, even if you get into that like 2 years into it and realize this is not what I want to be doing anymore, you know, you're never kind of too late to change that path. So I would say that as well. With that willingness to explore both in college and in your career, I think certainly the fear and uncertainty of what you'll be doing next can be scary, but I think kind of stepping back and realizing how you're not cutting yourself off from opportunities. You really, as we've talked about with econ especially, you've got so many different directions you can go.
Yes. Yeah. And to just, again, further drive the point that Navia and Hope said, reach out to your network, be resourceful, right? No one has all the answers. You can change degrees. I forget when Colonel Sanders of KFC started KFC. I think it was like 57 or 67. It's really, really quite a ways away from where you are right now. And yeah, just, you know, don't just, you know, be persistent, right? Constant work, and don't be scared of that work.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all of those answers, panelists. And I'm sorry, we have a few more questions in the chat that we weren't able to get to. There's always more questions out there in life.
I put in the chat for everyone who's still here, the link to the Liberal Arts Career Week schedule to make sure you're attending some really great events coming up this week, as well as the link to Nittany Lion Careers, which is where you can schedule an appointment to talk about your specific career journey with a career coach here in liberal arts. Just select someone with liberal arts after their name and you look at coaching, and we can help you one-on-one too outside of these events. Thank you so much, Dr. Boyle, for moderating, and for Seth and Navia and Hope for joining us today. We really appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you all on campus soon.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.